Hey there guys, gals, non-binary pals, GM Potter here. Welcome to my channel where I review books and bookish things. I try to upload on Thursdays and alternating Tuesdays, with a couple videos sprinkled in here and there depending on what I'm reading and where it fits in with the schedule. I also review much spicier content in detail of the spice over on my Patreon, which I will have linked below. Feel free to check that out if you're interested. And today we are reviewing His Dark Materials, The Subtle Knife by Phillip Pullman. So let's get into it. So this book has a 4.15 on Goodreads. For me, it is a solid 5 stars. Like so often is the case with trilogies, the middle book is the one that has the most meat and potatoes of it. It has the most storytelling, it has the most world building, the characters go through the most. It is my favorite book. This book came out in 1997, so it's a bit of a throwback. It is a young adult novel. The whole series is young adult, I should say. The blurb on the back and the bit that really catapults the book off going is, "What is he? A friend or an enemy?" The alethiometer answered, "He is a murderer." When she saw the answer, she relaxed at once. Ugh, gives me chills. It's such a good book, such good writing. So, this book details the preamble to a war against heaven and against God. Phillip Pullman has said that these books are about killing God, which is interesting because this book won a Parents' Choice Gold Book Award. So that's a very interesting thing that it's challenged. I don't know if it was actually banned. These books were actually banned, but I know they were challenged for the subject matter and religiosity of them. So it details the preamble to a war against heaven and against God. It's like the first one, it is brutal and it is harsh and it is bleak, but not gory and not graphic and not inappropriate for children. Again, I love how the author acknowledges that children have a thirst for not thirst for violence, but a thirst for brutality that is often not explored in children's literature. Like, I can only think of these books that explore the brutality of children's literature as much as they do. You can make an argument that the Harry Potter books get more brutal, but they also age up with the characters. So by the time we get the more brutal aspects of Harry Potter, they're not really for children anymore. These books are 100% for children. You can argue that the Chronicles of Narnia is brutal, but it's more... Chronicles of Narnia is an important book series. It's not one of my favorites. And also, it's not... I don't want to say it's not good, because that's dishonest. But it's not brutish in the same way that this is. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's violent, it details war. And I'm like, yeah, it does, and Santa gives them weapons, but like, it doesn't involve cutting someone's soul out of their body. It doesn't detail someone... So mild spoiler. At one point, in the universe where Lyra comes from, I will link the first book review up above, and we'll do the last book in the trilogy after this. Your soul is called a demon, and it's a physical manifestation that is spirit tethered to you, unless you're a witch, which is cool. Theirs can go miles and miles, but it physically becomes painful when you are distance separated from your demon, from your soul. It physically hurts, and there's a character who flies a hot air balloon, because of course there is, and someone climbs up the balloon to try and take him out, and his demon is the shape of a dog and can't climb up the air balloon, and the tether gets snapped, and he just dies and falls back down to earth. and it was a gut punch. These ones I listened to, I have physical copies of the books. I read these back when I was in middle school, after 1997, in the early 2000s. But I read these ones back when I was in 6th grade, back oh so long ago. So I have physical copies of them, but I listen to these on audiobook because I get to listen to audiobooks at work. So awesome. Great job, Perk. And I had to pause it, and I'm like, I'm taking my 10-minute break right now. I'm just going to go be somewhere else quietly in another part of the office because I just need a minute. Getting back to what the book is about, Will and Lyra are your stereotypical chosen ones, but at the same time they're chosen ones in the way that, I hate to say this, but they're the chosen ones in the same way that Harry Potter was a chosen one, in that he was used as a pawn in someone else's war. Yes, it did affect him. Yes, he had a role to play. Yes, all of these things, and it was a good thing that he did the things he did. But that doesn't excuse Dumbledore using him as a pawn and using him as bait and doing all the things that Dumbledore did that were not good for Harry. The angels, or the magisterium, or the adults, or whomever, because there's a dozen forces pulling these children every which way, are using these children as pawns in their war against heaven. And they're being used by and for the adults and the rebel angels. And the children, because they're children, go along with it in a way that I feel like grown-ups would stop to question. Like, Will says time and time again that he's here to pick up his father's mantle, that that's what he has to do, is pick up his father's mantle. He doesn't even know what this phrase means. He just knows that that's what his mother, who is mentally ill, perhaps, or maybe she can see what's really going on. It's unclear. I think she can actually see what's going on and see the demons and see the souls and see the angels and see all of these forces, and see dust. That's what I choose to believe. It's left kind of vague. It's always told him that his purpose was to pick up his father's mantle. And so he has to pick up his father's mantle and be strong and do all these things. And when he finally meets his dad after years and years and years, it was a gut punch. It was a gut punch. Yeah. It was as much a gut punch to my 35-year-old self as it was to my 6th grade self, honestly. Like, it was, like, I remembered that part of this book very vividly, and I'm like, oh no, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, I can't stop reading, I can't stop reading, I can't stop reading. Oh no. And Lyra is told by the alethiometer, which allows her to discuss things with dust, which is elementary quantum particles, because they're alive and they react to consciousness and they possess a consciousness of their own. We find out in this book that she must help Will, that that's her job, that is her duty. Well, she has a greater part to play, but she has to play that without knowing she's playing that part. And the adults know, well, okay, so the witches know who she is and what part she has to play without knowing that she's playing the part. So they're trying to guide her and manipulate her this way. And then her mother, Mrs. Coulter, one of the bad guys in the book, is trying to prevent her from doing this and trying to keep her safe, but at the same time manipulate her and use her and do all of these things. And the whole of Lyra's world, Will comes from our world. Lyra comes from a world that is governed by the Magisterium, which is a theocratic, murderous group that suppresses heresy at all costs. It's a whirlwind. I think it's the longest of the 3 books, at least in terms of read time, which if you listen to these on Audible, not sponsored, I pay for my Audible subscription with my own money, all opinions are my own. Phillip Pullman is the main narrator, and He does an amazing job. I love it when authors get to narrate their own books. Needful Things is narrated by Stephen King. He does an amazing job with that. It's chilling, it's haunting, it's... Whew, love it. Needful Things. Awesome. But Phillip Pullman does a good job because he already knows what happens, and when he's reading the story in the audio production, it feels like he doesn't know what's going to happen next either. And it feels like he's just along for the ride. He's just detailing what happened. And he's as shocked and surprised as you are. And, oh, it's good. This book is so good. Amber Spyglass is the conclusion. We're doing that one next. But this one is just heartbreaking in its ending because in the first book, right, you feel like you know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are and what's going on between them. Like, you kind of know. In this book, everything gets muddy, and it's like, well, everyone has their price. Everyone has their own motives and their own reasons for doing things. And it's like, what is going on with this book? Who is the good guy? Who is the bad guy? Who am I rooting for? And you're rooting for these children who are being used as pawns, and it's just so good. 5 stars. Please read this. So good. It's a children's book, but I feel like it works for an adult audience very well. It holds up very well. Yeah, have you read any of His Dark Materials books? Which one's your favorite? Like I said, The Subtle Knife, this one is my favorite. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.